Welcome everybody. For tonight's Local Development Framework Subcommittee on 26th of February. My granddaughter's 1 year old today, and I'm sat here.
Yeah. She won't miss it, she won't notice.
No, thanks for that. Okay, let's crack on. We're not expecting any fire alarms or anything like that, so if you do hear a fire alarm, evacuate through either the door at the back or that door there, form up on the car park, and please do not leave until you are told to do so. So, right, moving straight on. Apologies for absence, members away on official business. Now, it's a bit of a stranger because I think we've got apologies from Councillor Simpson. Have we heard from Councillor Taylor or Councillor Osborne? Okay. But we're three. Are we quorums?
Did you hear that?
Got half.
Got half. Okay, cool. Okay, Councillor Phillips is here from an observer perspective, I guess, but you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we? Is there any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest to declare on anything on tonight's agenda? No, I'm looking around. Okay, if we can go on to the minutes of the last meeting we held on the 19th of November. Pages on page 6 of 189. What was that? No, is that the minutes? No, that's the new MPPF. Where's the minutes? Here we go. Page 4. There we go. Yeah, page 4 of 189.
Chair, yeah, just
Councillor Ridley.
quickly. 16B. It was about the employment DVD. And the member workshops were going to be organised. I just wondered if there was an update on that, please.
We're planning on organising some. Unfortunately, just with how things have happened and gone along, so we are planning to do those. It'll probably be within the March-April time that subject to the agreement of the board this evening on some of the other items as to when exactly they'll happen.
Sure, the big queuing in the aisle.
Yeah, yeah, we did have the conversations about that we planned to organise them, but as Dot says, we was waiting some clarification, which I think we've now got, which is good. Okay, so that was page 4, page 5. Are we happy to accept those as accurate reflection? Okay, thank you. Got that? Did you capture that? Yeah, thank you. Okay, on to agenda item 5, which is a new NPPF. Who's taking this one? Is that you?
Yes, it would be myself. I wasn't really going to add much more to the report. You've got as an appendix A, so that's on page 9 of your papers, a summary of all of the main headline changes that have been introduced through the NPPF 2024. There wasn't minor corrections just a few weeks ago, but they are just really minor corrections. So these still are the main changes. The one thing that's outstanding is that we are still waiting for the planning policy guidance information on exactly how we should be doing the grey belt assessment under green belt. So we're still waiting for that. But as soon as we receive that, we'll let members know.
Any questions? Councillor,
Can I not ask them, if you get on to page 9, we've got this 20% buffer will be applied to the 5-year supply. I thought that was in place anyway, but the other note says this will apply where there has been significant under delivery. I would say we are under delivering. Is it significant?
So far, we've got a supply still of 5.1 years. But if you look backwards, then yes, we are starting to get to a point where that delivery is starting to be an issue that we need to address. but the 20% buffer would go on from July 2026 and not from now.
No,
So that would be effectively saying that we'd need to show a 6-year supply from the middle of next year. But again, dependent on your decisions on the other reports, that if we do a local plan review, then hopefully we'll have a local plan that will actually be able to be delivering that. So
but you use the word, we've got to address that. We're not the driver of that, are we? It's the developers that are the driver. If they don't come forward, we can't wave a stick at them and say, do it.
yes, to a point, but also if we can allocate sites for housing, then that actually indicates that those sites are the ones that we want to be brought forward. The as you'll see later in the reports with the AMR, in that it's an awful lot of the smaller sites that are coming forward. It's actually the big site of H4 and H2 are the one at Atherstone, which are the ones that are taking time to bring forward. But it tends to be the smaller sites of between 20, 50, 80. They're the ones that seem to be coming forward quite quickly.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry, Chair.
Okay. Very informal, we're. Any other questions? So obviously the recommendation is that that report be noted. One happy to note that. Proposer and a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Ridley, second Councillor Humphries. All those in favour? Yeah, that's carried. Thank you very much. Right, let's move on to agenda item 6, which is the annual monitoring report.
Again, this is the third annual monitoring report since we adopted the plan in 2021. Again, this year we were hoping that the IT system in the planning department would have been installed and that it would have made monitoring a lot easier, but we've still met with a few of those challenges. So there are some areas in the report which say that it's still outstanding. The one that members might want to have a look at is on page 43, which is the 5-year housing land supply, which is 5.1, and that shows you how we've come to those calculations. The one thing that I would say is that that's 5.1 as of the 31st of March 2024, because of course this would be the monitoring year 23 to 24, and the new AMR would then cover the 24 to 25, and again we'll bring that to you as quickly as we can by the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the annual monitoring report? Councillor Ridley.
Yeah, thank you. I noted it. Thanks for that. Obviously the delivery of the sites again, it was just as last year. Obviously our starter homes, our first starter homes and our bungalows and things again, very difficult to try and persuade developers to deliver because it doesn't maximise their profits. Is there any way that we can bring that forward? I don't know if there's any 106 or any policy or something, perhaps in our local plan review that could try and drive that forward, because obviously it's starter and retirement homes that is really what I think a real need, both ends of the housing.
Yes, totally agree. I think where we get the best mix of houses is probably on the bigger sites, and hopefully when we can bring forward H4 or H2, hopefully they would have a wider mix of housing, because it does seem to be those larger number sites that tend to have those mixes. We've already got the policy in the local plan LP7, which talks about the mix of houses at both ends of the spectrum, and also includes self-build as well. So there is the policy in there yeah, it's still fighting against the challenges of the site survivability and things like that. So it is always something that we do try to deliver as much as we can.
Thank you. And a couple of questions from me, if you don't mind. So I was going to ask about LP7 and LP9, because they're the two, but Councillor Ridley's kind of raised the suitable housing, i.e. bungalows, etc., and also the affordable housing piece. But the one I wanted to raise was LP26 was around the strategic road improvements. Obviously, that's a concern for us as a borough with the A5. We had conversations, etc. Any comments to make on that?
Only with the A5 that we're still awaiting the outcome of the spending review. Early indications are that the spending review by central government should be done by the summer. Exactly when we should hear, and as part of the local plan review, then we would have to look at the deliverability and how we can actually seek either alternative funding or other means of delivering housing sites. But it's still up there is something that we need to try and to actually get. So.
Thank you, because there was money originally allocated for the A5 improvements, and then it kind of got withdrawn through change of government. I thought that might be coming back, the funding. Is that the spending review you're talking about?
Well, as far as I'm aware, the original 79.5 million isn't in somebody's bank account, but it's in government somewhere with the Department of MHCLG. And so on the one hand, there is that amount of money, but the cost of the scheme has spiraled with inflation and other things. So it's that difference of the cost that I think is the issue. It is something that, as part of the government's look at what they're spending the money on, is something that is key to us, and we'll need to understand that as we go forward.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I've got looking at this goes through H1 through to H19, etc. Have we got a list of anything else that's come forward on the call for sites? Am I missing it in here?
So these are only looking at the policies from the local plan.
Right.
So the LP 37 is the allocations that we have, and it's monitoring against those.
Right.
We do have a large spreadsheet of all the sites that have got planning permission and all the sites that have been completed since 2019, and even way before, but since 2019. And that is what is in the calculations that I said were for the 5-year housing land supply. Now, in terms of the call for sites, the call for sites that was done last year, that's already been presented to members last, I think it was July time. So that would have given all of the sites at that stage. But again, something in here is that we were looking to actually stop the call for sites at some stage. So I can come back to that on a different report.
Yeah, because we're going to come onto forward planning and things like that, aren't we? So,
Well, can I just ask that we have that? I can't recall that. I'll have to find it, but could I have a copy of it?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I'm just thinking of only on Friday afternoon last week, Richborough are looking at 110 houses on the corner of Church Road and Tamworth Road in Wharton, and that's out of the blue. So that's another 110 houses. And I understand he's going to want to go quite quick. There must be some. So that's not even been put forward to call for sites. I wouldn't have thought.
No, it wasn't, but I think they will be.
Yeah.
I think they will submit that. As
And
well.
how long does a call for sites stay open? Is it forever?
Shall I move on to that? Or
Oh, sorry.
so we can move on to that in a
Yeah.
moment. Because, yeah.
Just shut up.
So just to finish off, agenda item 6, the AMR, obviously the recommendation is that report is noted.
Just one final
Sorry,
point on that latter point, Chair. Appendix, I forgot the appendix. Appendix C we'll give councillors the list of the current completions sites as well. So at least you'll have some record of what sites have come forward outside of that allocations. And that's page 99 of 189 onwards. It's that table there, and it gives you slightly different sizes. That's for the employment. And I think there is one similarly for housing, which will give you a little bit of information. That's more related to the 5-year housing on supply, so it doesn't tell you what's coming towards us, but at least it tells you what we've granted consent to.
So that's telling us what's already in, isn't it? It's not the,
Yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't give us an idea of what's coming or what's in the cards.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Can I have a proposer and a seconder? Proposer, councillor Humphries, second, councillor Ridley. All those in favour? Nice and easy. Okay, moving on then to agenda item 7, which is the update on forward planning work. Just on this report, I'll just draw your attention to Appendix A, which is on page 130. And if you look in that on the first line on employment DPD, about halfway through the appendix or the grid, it talks about publication and submission, draft DPT and public consultation, says autumn 2024. That should be autumn 2025, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's on the next board
Is that
report.
the next one?
Yeah.
I thought that was 7. I thought that was 7.
Yeah, that's board report number 8.
Oh, right, I've jumped one. Sorry, I've
No
jumped one.
problem, but
Right, sorry, yeah, okay. So 7's only 2 pages, that's why I jumped it. It's a very short report then.
It is.
Okay,
4 and 5, or 5. It's 4 now, is it? Is it? It's 5.
2025.
No.
it'll be 2025, yeah,
That's all right.
because we can't turn back time.
No.
I just got.
Unless you're Tina, is it Tina Turner?
Tina Turner.
Share, thank you. Right, anyway, getting back to the, so agenda item 7, ignore what I just said, update on forward planning.
This is a very short report, and basically the essence of it is that we would like to continue to prepare the employment plan that was always in our work programme, but also to start to do the local plan review. We were hoping to start the local plan review when we knew the new plan making system, but we're still awaiting that, and the adoption of the plan at the end of the 5 years since adoption, will be next September. And so we feel that we need to really start that as soon as we possibly can. It gives you an indication in the report of the sort of assessment that we'll do. So on page 123, you'll see table 1 that we will. The first thing that we'll do is have a look at the new NPPF and say, well, what is it that we need to review and update? Because what we're proposing is not a complete rewrite of the local plan, but we look to actually see what are the policies that we can keep going and the ones that we can update as we go through.
And how does the Greenbelt review feed into that?
So things like the Greenbelt review, landscape, the sustainability appraisal, they're all part of the evidence and part of the supporting documents to produce any plan making documents. So for the employment plan, we would then be reviewing the local plan, and for the wider local plan review, that Greenbelt review may need to be tweaked or expanded to just make sure it covers like the residential side of it and not just the employment side.
Thank you. Any questions, councillor Ridley?
Just to confirm, I think we were going to do an employment DPD, but I think we're not doing that now. We're just going to do a review and incorporate that work into the review of the local plan. Is that right?
I think at the present time, we'd still like to produce two plans. And it may be at some stage in the future that the two do merge. But I think just at the moment, I think one, because we've started gathering the evidence for the employment plan, that we'd like to see how far we can get with that, because we're going to be a little bit further on with the local plan, or a little bit further behind, I should say, with the local plan review. And it may be that the two do actually come together at some stage. But as we sit here today, I'd like to just continue with the two work streams.
Sorry, Chair, through you. Was that a result of obviously the strategic gap appeal and whatnot? Or there was a lot of work done on that, wasn't it, about employment sites and the need and what that generated and whatnot? So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all to try and keep that momentum going in terms of that work. So because we are getting applications in for big employment sites, so it would be good to have a plan there that said exactly what the up-to-date policies were.
And how does the call for sites affect that? Because obviously the call for sites is for all sites, isn't it? It's not just employment land. So you're saying would we stop the call for sites from an employment land perspective and then develop the DPD whilst we continue working on the local plan?
What I would be proposing is to stop the call for sites for everything, so that it's very clear that we've got an end date and so that if there were sites that come in, and I'm suggesting up to the 31st of March of this year, then they could potentially be included in any of the evidence base, and that could be for any use. The call for sites last year, although we did broaden it out for any type of development, we have since heard people say, "Oh yeah, but you weren't doing your local plan or whatever, so I didn't bother to put the site forward." Whereas now we want to make sure that we do capture as many and all of the sites as possible.
And how will that impact? Because I'm very conscious from a member perspective, what we'd like to see is that list of sites. Once you've been through the policy saying in, out, and the reason for a recommendation in or out, and also these member workshops. So I'm just trying to get an idea of the timeline around those.
In terms of information, so we would close the call for sites at the end of March. So it would be a matter of giving us a few weeks just to pull all those together. And as a matter of information, we're happy to share that with members. The point at which we'll be able to say a site's in or out may be during the summer more than it would be in April time, because we need the evidence that we're looking for. But also, as part of this, it may be that we talk about sites and then some may go in, go out, or whatever. So, and as that evidence gets gathered, there may be a change of view as we go through the process. But when we come to talk to members with the document, then that would be a draft, possibly into workshop or whatever, then that would be when we'd say, well, these are the ones that are in or out. So
that document will come to this committee first, yes, before it goes to the wider membership. Okay.
yes.
Any other questions on the forward planning?
Well, I was just looking at going back a bit, if you don't mind. Sorry, Chair. What about the site in Hartshill? The old tarmac, I can't find it on here.
That would be H9, I think it is.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh yeah, actually, yeah.
yeah.
That's at risk now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's still got a pending planning application on it, so that would be a
But it's still
decision.
the blasting quarry bit is another risk, isn't it?
It is, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so that could come off quite easily.
Yeah, there's, I don't know whether you'd want to say that it would come off or whether it gets reserved or whatever. So, but that again is something that we need to talk through as part of the local plan review. It may be that the planning permission gets approved. So there's a lot of options and
Well, I was just
scenarios
thinking,
there.
when we spoke last week, you did talk about the problem changing Plough Hill, for example. And anything like that site would have a drastic effect as well. So we need to either have it in or out, don't we?
Yeah, I think there's a range of scenarios and
Yeah,
options there, I think, that we need
alright,
to
so-
work through.
I'll
And
I'll
understand
shut
the
up.
consequences of them all, so.
I'll collect too many questions.
Right, thank you. No, it's what we're here to do, to ask questions, absolutely. Okay, so, agenda item 7, which is the update of forward planning, the recommendation is that this report be supported. And that work of the forward planning team be incorporated into the local development scheme, which is subject to a latter report in here as well. Is everyone happy with that? Can I have a proposer and a seconder? Proposer, seconder, all those in favour? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on, right now. So we're on agenda item 8, the local development scheme, February 2025. And as I say, I'll draw your attention to a slight change that's just being handed round at the moment, whereby the autumn 2024 date should be autumn 2025. And that, of course, then pushes out the submission and examination of the DPD
Thank you.
to late 2025, early
Thank you
2026.
very much.
It's just at the top of the table. So, with that in mind, is that yourself again?
Yes, it is. It was only to draw your attention to that correction. This is the local development scheme, which we have to update on a regular basis. And this one, unusually has to get sent to MHCLG, because as a result of recent information, they want us to send our local work scheme to them. And that's across the board. Everybody in the country has to do it. So.
Any questions
I'll
on?
move that.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Ridley's got a question, sorry.
I'm sorry, just, so, I take it that this doesn't preclude this possibility that we'll get planning applications for employment sites anyway, before that.
No, it doesn't preclude that at all,
Yes, exactly.
unfortunately, yeah. The plan making process is outside of the planning
Outside.
application, yeah.
Yeah, nothing stops,
I mean,
unfortunately. Okay. Okay, if there's no further questions, obviously the recommendation is that we recommend this to the exec board that the local development scheme is approved. Proposed by councillor Humphreys. Seconded by councillor Ridley. All those in favour? Yeah, I think it's just want to see some of this before we move too fast and put too much forward. Okay, right. Moving on, agenda item 9 is the Coventry City Council local plan, either Reg 19 plan consultation. Whose is this one?
It's mine.
So-
Sorry, it's going to be dark.
The only point to really draw your attention to is the fact that the housing they can deal with in their plan, but they do have a requirement of a request of 45 hectares of local employment land to be distributed, to be sent to a neighbour of some sort within the Warwickshire area. Discussions are ongoing and
Warwick area rather than Warwick.
So those will be ongoing discussions, but at the present time, it was just to raise the general support to the plan, but just say that it is disappointing about the 45 hectares.
Can I ask a question about that? If you think about the link road off the A45 and what's happening between, north of Coventry, that road they put in there now has opened a massive amount of area. Is that area completely allocated? Because I can't see why they need 120 acres of our land when they've got
That's housing.
hundreds of acres over there.
That's the Eastern Green,
Yeah,
is
the
that
house-
Eastern
the house.
Green area,
But
So, as part of the proposals, they are releasing sites, mainly for housing around that particular area. Employment tends to be down the south.
Well, then you've also got what's being released at Baggington as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I know some of that's in the Warwick area.
It is.
It is. I must be. I'm surprised they're actually asking for this because we've got the gig park, we've got all of that sort of thing. So my argument would be Warwickshire's already doing its bit for Coventry because you've got a significant area that's been allocated for the Giga Park. I'm not quite sure what more they expect of Warwickshire. I think it is where I would be pushing back and asking that question.
Well, I'm just thinking of to add the Wishaw area to start with, possibly the A46 going up to Junction 9, Junction 4, and there's significant, it's 4 or 5 million square feet of warehouse time that's finished.
But this is so bringing this back. This is a request from Coventry City Council.
Yeah.
So if you think of the Coventry shape of that, for this 45 hectares of employment land for basically one of their neighbours. Say one of their neighbours, effectively it's us or Solihull, and it's probably very unlikely to be Solihull. But where I struggle with it is that if you think about the Coventry City Airport site or the Gigaparks, the Gigafactory, that would be a tick already. I would say we've already done our bit. Doc, do you want to come back
Yeah,
on
but
that?
if I could just say though that this plan is looking forward yet again, and so as you know, things just don't stop. But the Giga site has already got permission. It's already in the pipeline, so it's additional sites, and also that's strategic employment and not local employment, and that's where they're coming from. Is that that they're looking now for local employment sites, so the smaller type of sites. But I mean, we can pass your concerns on because as part of the recommendations we've said, any discussions we will pass that along.
Yeah, I mean, that's all. So good.
What's local? I mean, if we said we were going to stick it in Ostrich, for example, that's not local to Coventry. Does it have to be near Coventry, or everybody could commute? I do realise that.
As part of the previous local plan, we always said that if the figures came to us, we determine where it goes. So that would be something that we would particularly look at. And so we would determine the location in North Warwickshire. So that has always been, I mean, it's housing that we've had in the past. And people have said, oh, it should be closer to Birmingham or Tamworth or whatever. We've always said, no, if you're giving us the numbers, we determine where it goes in our borough.
Yeah, I think if you could feed that back, sorry, Mike, did you want?
No, just to confirm that through the discussions, there will be an element of either redistribution between all authorities, or it may be that there is, on the sites you've suggested, an opportunity comes forward through their own local plans, because interestingly, the next report will have a bearing on that very comment. And it will be those opportunities through the new local plans in Rugby, South Warwickshire and Nuneaton. Nuneaton's plan is just getting towards the end of the decision-making stages. They'll be waiting for the inspector's report. We are already aware that they have expressed that immediately the inspector approves or whatever that local plan, they will be doing what we're doing, starting their new local plan. So hence so Rugby already is, South Warwickshire, which is Warwick and Stratford already are. So we're already in this, I'd probably politely say, mix and match situation where we're all horse trading. And if any one particular area has a significantly major site that can do both strategic and local need, and that local authority sees that as an opportunity to address part of the need that they would be passed on or asked to accommodate from Coventry, that's where they'll be. And I know Rugby particularly, and Warwick, Stratford, because it's South Warwickshire, are in that position already. But none of the agreement has yet been made about how much that equates to.
Yeah.
So the house trading has already started.
Yeah. Yeah, my only comment on horse trading would be you have to have something to offer, and what are they offering back? So,
Fine.
okay. Any
So-
other thoughts or questions on the?
Well, this is just for noting, isn't it? now?
Well, it's for us to agree the observations that have been raised within the report. And any comments and any additional comments that we may have, basically send it back to commentary for consideration and comment. So I think we've captured those. I think if there are any other, because I mean, at least it's not like the Birmingham one where it's like we can't meet our housing supply and we're not going to review Greenbelt. You know, which was I still can't see the inspector letting them kind of get away with that, to be honest. And the Hinkley and Bosworth, where there are lots of development right on our borders, potentially using up capacity on the A5. So it's that time of year, isn't it? Or it's that time where everyone's looking at their plans, etc. It just surprises me that they're asking for that. Perhaps it doesn't. I don't know. Any other thoughts on the commentary in City of Say recommendation on page 132 is that we note and agree the observations and that we feedback any comments.
Yeah.
I have a proposal and a seconder for that. It's the same two. Pros and Councillor Humphries for second. Was in favour? Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to agenda item 10, which been kind of mentioned. It's a South Warwickshire local plan, preferred options consultation.
Thank you, Chair. The South Warwickshire Local Plan consultation is a slightly further advanced position than the Coventry one. They've been through a number of issues and options and early regulation 18 stages. We did have significant concerns at those initial stages because we didn't believe, and it was not evident from their plan, that they were addressing key issues that were hitting us at that time. We are currently addressing through our employment DPD, which is strategic employment. It has been quite refreshing actually at this stage to see this new local plan because they are indicating commitment to addressing the strategic need. And the strategic need that has been identified both through our current HEDNA, Housing Employment Needs Assessment, and the alignment report that ICNI did, which was to align the Coventry and Warwickshire Council's assessment of their strategic need with the new West Midlands Strategic Employment Site Strategy. So we're talking about a significant amount of land, which is around about 750 plus hectares, and where and how that can be accommodated within the various areas. Stratford, particularly Stratford District and Warwick, through the South Warwickshire Plan, are looking at significant potential growth in these preferred options. If I cover the employment side easier, that's probably the easier way to do it. They are including potential to address their strategic employment need within that M40 corridor, which is previously identified in the West Midlands Strategic Employment Site as the Opportunity Area 8, I think it is, which is the M40 A46, effectively the Gaydon corridor where the new settlements and the new expansion is. And it is actually encouraging to see that they haven't specified that the growth in that area is only going to be to high tech and research and development, which was associated with the Land Rover expansion factories. So that's been very, very positive. In terms of the previous point we raised about the 45 hectare shortfall, they weren't aware of that when they did this document. So they will have to consider that issue and feed it into this preferred option, because this preferred option does not make any reference to and is unaware of the 45 hectare shortfall from Coventry. So no doubt we may get a revision to this, or we may get some updates. But I am aware that there is a further opportunity area to the north of Warwick, which I think you were referring to just now recently. And the indication is that if there is this potential issue, that is the sort of area that they will be focusing on to try and address that, because that's more related to local need for Warwick. Warwick's proximity with Leamington and Kenilworth to Coventry per se, and the relationship with the airport site as well, means that that's where they'll be focusing the local needs. So it would seem to be sensible. So I would advise members obviously to keep aware of that, that although we're positive in terms of their approach, there is potential for some further issues with the 45 hectare Coventry issue. And that if that comes back into a little bit clearer evidence of how that's distributed, we'll be looking to see how the South Warwickshire local plan will be addressing that, and hopefully from the discussion we've had on the duty to operate, that will be, or at least a significant element of that will be addressed through their relationship with Coventry at those particular two areas. So I'm going to cross my fingers here at that point and say, otherwise, I've got no problem. The housing implications for us are non-existent from South Warwickshire, the Stratford area predominantly, because they, different to Warwick, they are actually within the Birmingham housing market area. And they have the same issue that we do, is that they have to address some of the Birmingham need. Now, we've addressed that already through our existing local plan. Some was addressed through the earlier Stratford plan, and obviously there is further work ongoing, other statements of common ground, or the continuation of any Birmingham shortfall. That's why Birmingham are also doing the local. South Warwickshire have addressed this by a significant spatial growth strategy, identifying a significant number of major growth areas, urban extensions or village extensions, and potential new settlements. So there's a significant number of options in here. There are actual 11 potential new settlements that they are identifying in the South Warwickshire area. And as far as our response to that approach, we're suggesting that it's be supported, and it's encouraging to see that they're actively looking to address the effectively housing pressure and need. So primarily from the plan itself, it's encouraging to see their direction. We will be keeping a close eye and watch on how the housing issue, the employment shortfall is addressed that suddenly arise from Coventry and isn't identified in this plan. But otherwise, we're very, very, very encouraged and supportive of the approach taken at this stage.
Okay, thanks. Any questions?
I saw this, if I may, Chair, we're talking about, I didn't know we had to consider, I mean, I've read this thing about 2.15 on page 10, to require the provision of pitches and plots on a large-scale development site, but over 500 homes. Is that seriously 500 pitches in South? Have I misunderstood that?
Yeah, the paragraph actually reads that it's a requirement of 89
Yeah.
pitches.
I was reading the
and
next
the-
paragraph down.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, it's a policy that they've done so that any housing sites of bricks and mortar over 500 units, they would require a portion of that to be for the gypsy and traveller community.
Not on that site necessarily, or.
It could be part of it.
About 89 gypsy caravans at the other end of the park.
Well, it would be a proportion of it, it'd be a proportion of the number.
And the other one that I saw is, I saw travelling, from all I've seen in my time looking at it, show people have camps, if you know what I mean, winter camps, don't they, etc. They like to have at Oakthorpe if you go down the road from Colville. So would that be a camp they'd have to supply? And the question I was going to ask, would that come to us eventually? And the other one I was about saw was 35 permanent residential moorings. And I'm just thinking, I don't know if you know Adrian Burr, he used to be the chair of the football club, but he owns Woodford Builders. If you go on that Bosworth Road, he only builds 5-bedroom houses. He built that at Market Bosworth. He paid over £2 million to build that basement. Yeah. It's not, would that mean if it ever came here, would we have to build a basement? For example, I'm just guessing here.
Yeah, as part of the housing needs, you have to assess all of your housing
Yeah.
needs across the borough, and that includes every community type that we can think of. And in North Warwickshire, we've never had a need for to provide accommodation for travelling show people. I mean, they have a particular different type of need from the gypsy community, because they require actually a working yard where they can store their equipment and things like that. So it's more semi-industrial from a home. And for boat people, that is a requirement within the housing needs studies, that you have to look at the needs. I think we've only had one that I can recall in all the time that I've been here. And I've been here a
Well,
while.
it's bigger than, I'm just thinking about walking up from Amazon and on the canal to Bradley Green, where the little bridges are on Swan Lake. Then there's the Taylor on there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So that, I think that's Pond Infrastructure's own success. They've got a very good, heavily used stretch of the river, the canal,
Yeah.
and Warwick's impacted all the way to Kenilworth. And the implications are that following their revised housing need, they had to undertake as part of this. It highlighted that need. And it is a question, obviously, from councils' minds to be aware of, that in subsequent plan review, if we undertake that
Well,
further,
that's a consideration.
it may be, because the situation's there. And if we don't assess it, we will be challenged.
And would that be our problem or the Canal Riverboat Trust problem?
It's, I'm not wholly sure, but I believe it probably would come down to us seeking through the core sites for an opportunity to address it.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Something to look forward
Yeah,
to.
well, it's also interesting, if you read further on in the report, they talk about using Leamington Football Club site potentially,
A sports site.
which will be interesting.
Perhaps we
Yeah,
should
they're
have one
doing
down the Sheepy
a
Road.
land swap, yeah.
And
Build a new football club, that's the proposal.
okay, any other questions
No, that's very
on
interesting.
South Warwickshire plan?
Beginning to dislike you, Mike.
Yeah, okay, so on page 137, we have the recommendations that members note the South Warwickshire local plan and the preferred options, regulation 18, consultation 2025, and that we support the suggested responses in appendix 1, this report, and raise any further comments. Proposed, seconded, and all those in favour? Great, thank you very much. Right, and we're on to our last agenda item, which is an interesting one, because we were talking about it outside. And that's the Warwickshire Coventry Solihull's, Warwickshire Coventry and Solihull State of Habitat,
You're not even
read,
drunk and you can't say.
Habitat 2025.
Please.
There are a couple of things that we're waiting on an update in there, because there'll be a few amendments to this report, so we can still note it, but that'll go through some of the or what we expect to see in some of the minor amendments.
So, I just, I can send round an updated report that they've made some minor changes to the report. Because we actually asked them about what does it mean and which sites were lost? Because in the papers, you'll see, it says that we've lost 7 wildlife sites or local wildlife sites. I just literally got that, so I can circulate that to members. But just to give you an indication, it was where there was the mineral railway line that goes into Baddesley. And then when the railway line was reinstated, of course, that then gets lost. Same with a portion of the road that HS2 is going through. So that again's lost. But I can send you the full list of the 7 sites. There's a little plan there as well that actually shows all of that information. And I can send through. What they've done is try to clarify the wording about that within the report. So it's only a minor tweak, but it is an update.
Not a big piece of land. I'm just thinking of, Chair, sorry, Packington, a rewilding 1,500 acres along the river there.
Yeah.
It's a massive amount of space in terms of when you stand there, because we went and had a look at it. Are we talking bigger space areas of?
No, the areas of land that have been lost are very minimal. These are small areas compared to the overall. I mean, the borough's 119,000 hectares, and they've surveyed, I think there's, I can't work out the maths, but I think there's 12% of the area that isn't surveyed, and the majority of that is urban area. So there's only a very small amount that isn't our survey. We've been part of the partnership, the Borough Council, since 1996, and gradually the information's built up. But this is the first time that they've actually done a full report saying, well, what is the state of all the habitats?
Thank you.
It was quite interesting because we were having this conversation outside and we were saying that the language wasn't particularly helpful. They talked about lots of sites, but actually it didn't mean they'd lost the whole site. They could have lost just part of the site.
Yeah.
So it kind of was quite misleading or it could be quite emotive, because of the way it's written.
I'm going to chair, would you be expected to put little bits so there's a little bit of wilding everywhere, or could you take 1,500 acres that's done us for the next 30 years, we've covered it, just because of what Packington have done?
No, my opinion is that with climate change, we need to be doing an awful lot more. So I'm just one of
What
those.
you keep saying, no?
Well, if you also recall, though, it wasn't that long ago, we actually got a policy now where we're looking for net gain rather than
Yeah.
kind of no net loss. We want net gain, which is a positive. So anyone who does development should be looking at a positive net gain.
But there is a net gain when you rewild the side of the motorway, for example. If you think about just going up from here to Ashby, the man up there in Ashby tells me if you look to the right, and which is part of the National Forest now, they're putting 4 million trees in there. Now you can't see 4 million trees, but it's definitely starting to have an effect. But even the boundaries of the motorway become wild.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair.
Councillor Ridley.
Sorry, Doc, just going back to this. Just going back to this. So when they took the sites away and they used, the Baddesley thing and whatnot, did they put biodiversity net gain anywhere else, or was it prior to the biodiversity net gain?
It was prior
to
to,
it. Okay.
yeah, the sites that have been lost that I can see in the plans are all prior. Some of them are quite old, and because the data goes back so long, I suppose you could look at it in one way. We've done well only to lose 7, but that perhaps would be a way.
It is when you consider some of those are HS2, and HS2's policy is no net loss, and we do constantly. But yeah, that no net or that net gain came in fairly recently. Was it
April.
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah.
But if you think where you live, go down where the cement factory is for HS2, that was completely planted to mitigate.
Well, that ancient woodland that was one of the sites that were lost. So that was one of the sites. So
And there was the planting put there to cover Hams Hall. All that's a big pile of wood now.
yes,
Timber.
yeah, it was. Sorry, Mike, did you want to come back?
It was just to clarify a little bit on again, going back to the chair's comment on the unhelpful text language in the way this is. The Kingsbury to Baxterley route, former railway line, is a classic example, exactly as what you've just said. It's a loss identified, destroyed, and yet there has been little change to the lines, what do you call them, embankments. The embankments are still there. It was the line itself and the embankments that were of value as a local wildlife site. So you've only actually lost the central track. Obviously the track now, the train's going coming down it, and they relay the ballast, and it's weeded and it's maintained. But the embankment's still there. They still provide the wildlife corridor, and they are still identified as such on the habitat biodiversity audit. The audit is what it says it is. It's an audit of all the land in the situation that it currently is. So it may be, I'm not suggesting that it is going to close, but if the railway line was to close in any near future, then it would be effectively recreated. It is interesting that they just invested in additional satellite photography, which now basically can, from space, effectively give you a very accurate analysis of what actually is there in terms of biodiversity terms. So that will be useful to see how much is actually really being lost or not being lost. But the prime usefulness of the local wildlife site is feeding in to that audit and saying where the links are between the habitats and the ecology, and that where we do get a big application that impacts on those connectivity, it's all about the connectivity and the accessibility. In those circumstances, that's where they're most going to come to us and say, no, we don't want to see loss there. This is a major connectivity of these two particularly important ecologies. What we don't want to do, what has been happening, is you get ghettoisation of the natural environment. You get a little small piece of ancient woodland in the middle of Wishaw, and then 4 miles away there's another. Now it's impossible for the type of ecology, if you're looking at dormice, whatever, to get across between there, Kingsbury, simply because there's a motorway in the way. There's potentially going to be a logistics site if that comes forward in the way, and there's all the other issues. So what they will then be doing is using that audit and using those linkages to say, okay, if we do accept development, you are having to enhance and net gain. Well then, keeping those links will be critical, because without those links, we will be at a net loss. Because actually, each of these little islands start dying.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, so the recommendation on page 146 is that we note the report based on the fact we're obviously going to send out an updated report with some minor changes. Are you happy with that? Yes. Both of you all in favour? Yeah. That's carried. And that is it for this evening. Thank you very much, everybody.